Assalamu alaikum. Peace unto everyone. We're in the month of October, and if you have seasonal allergies that are worse in fall and spring, then I know these can be really rough times for you. I have patients at my clinic who come in with seasonal allergies who tell me they have such bad allergies they want to rip their eyes out of their sockets. I have patients who tell me that they sneeze so hard and repeatedly that they throw their back out. That's how bad it can be. So we do relate. If you're suffering from seasonal allergies, then this is the right video for you. We're going to be going over not just stuff you may already know, but more importantly, treatments that you may have never even heard of or may not be aware of. So it's going to be a useful one for you. If you have food allergies, there is definitely going to be information that relates to that as well. But I am going to have a separate video that relates more specifically to food allergies as well. When it comes to treatments, there are certain things that are simple and intuitive, like reducing exposure, not going outside as much, wearing a mask, trying to get rid of your carpet. But a lot of those steps are not really very practical or easy to do. Having said that, we already just discussed the importance of gut health. So the first treatment I want everybody out there to realize is that restoring proper gut health is the first treatment that you have to consider, especially for the long term. Keep in mind the Prophet ﷺ mentioned in the following beautiful hadith, he stated that the stomach or the digestive system is the well of the body and the veins drink from it. If it is healthy, then the veins pass on good health. If it is not healthy, the veins pass on sickness or disease to the whole body. SubhanAllah. So the Prophet ﷺ in this hadith basically offered a prophecy of what was to come, because modern medicine has only realized the importance of gut health within probably the last 20 or 30 years. Having said that, knowing that about 70% of the immune system is in your gut, then that is where we have to start in order to treat allergies. So in functional medicine, there is a treatment protocol called the 5R protocol. So what is the 5R protocol? The 5 R's stand for remove, replace, re-inoculate, repair, and retain. So what does that involve? Basically, removing means removing inflammatory foods, like for example, sugar or sometimes gluten or dairy or soy. It involves removing certain infectious agents. Replacing means replacing certain deficiencies that relate to the digestive process. For example, replacing certain digestive enzymes, possibly stomach acid, possibly bile acids. Re-inoculating relates to re-inoculating good or beneficial bacteria. I'm sure all of you out there have heard about probiotics, which are beneficial microorganisms in your gut. You're supposed to have over 38 trillion of them in your guts. Think about that. There's also something related called prebiotics, which a lot of people are deficient in. I'm sure you've heard of probiotics, but prebiotics are basically the main food or nourishment for the probiotics. Probiotics are living organisms that need food too, and in general, the most common prebiotic is certain types of fiber. So where do you get that from? Again, back to healthy food. Then the other R relates to repairing. That means repairing the gut lining. That means providing it the nutrients it needs, like for example, zinc, magnesium, or glutamine. So again, if you want to follow this 5R protocol, I would suggest going to a functional medicine practitioner or somebody who is well versed in this methodology, and they can advise you on exactly how to do this. A second treatment that I wanted to point out that's natural and is also stemming from the Sunnah means to take local honey with local bee pollen. All of you have heard of honey, but some of you may be less familiar with the bee pollen. It turns out that bee farmers can put a sieve or a filter on their hive. So when the bees come back after pollinating the flowers, they go through tiny holes and the filter knocks the pollen off their body, and the bee farmers collect this substance, which is known as pollen granules. The concept, brothers and sisters, is to take a little bit of this bee pollen, a little bit of honey, take it on a daily basis, and it can slowly help to develop natural tolerance over time. Now, this is a time-tested technique that I myself have used with patients. There are many naturopaths who use this technique and have for many decades. Modern medicine has two criticisms of this method. They'll say, number one, that there aren't enough studies on it. We need more studies, even though there are some studies on it. But again, this comes back to the fact that there's not enough money for corporations or drug companies to put research into natural substances like bee pollen, because there's just not enough profitability in it. Having said that, the second criticism they have is that bee pollen is different from grass, weed, and tree pollen that is common to most environments. They'll say it has slightly different constituents, but the reality is there are certain differences between bee pollen and outdoor grass pollen and tree pollen, but there are certain similarities too, and more importantly than that, that bee pollen and the honey contain certain key ingredients that help with allergies. So it's not just about the similarity or dissimilarity with pollen, it's about the antioxidants, it's about the enzymes, it's about the flavonoids that are in both honey and pollen that can help with seasonal allergies in a significant way. I've had patients who have taken bee pollen and local honey consistently, and that's the key, taking it consistently for like a year or more, and they're the ones who see a difference. The third technique that I wanted to point out that's natural is known as NAET. NAET stands for Nambudripad's Allergy Elimination Techniques. It's named after a doctor based in the Los Angeles area, Dr. Debbie Nambudripad. She's a medical doctor, she's an acupuncturist, she's a chiropractor, she's even a nurse. She herself suffered from horrendous allergies for many years, and she filed for a trademark on this particular method back in the 1980s because it helped her more than anything, and she's been teaching doctors ever since then. In a nutshell, it's basically like having the patient sense low levels of the allergen, dilute preparations of the allergen, while doing acupuncture at the same time. So she basically put the two together, meaning sensing of the allergens along with simultaneous acupuncture, and she started seeing excellent results, not only with her, but then she started teaching other practitioners as well. They've done a ton of research on acupuncture in the last few decades, and they found that when you put those needles in and you retain them for some time, you basically stimulate your nervous system to produce certain natural chemicals. You may have heard of endorphins. There's something called enkephalins, dynorphins. You can even affect neurotransmitters with acupuncture like serotonin and dopamine. But the main point here is those endorphins and enkephalins, they help to reduce inflammation. They reduce allergic response. They even reduce pain. They're even good for your mood. So they're basically feel-good chemicals that your body gets triggered by through the acupuncture. And if you do that while sensing the allergen at the same time, you can start to see the difference. You'll start to see the improvement. So again, for this technique too, you would have to go to a NAET certified practitioner. You can go to www.naet.com. The fourth natural treatment that I wanted to point out for allergies includes certain very useful supplements that you may not be familiar with. The first one I wanted to point out is called quercetin. Quercetin is one of the best kept secrets or gems out there. It is a plant-based flavonoid. It's an antioxidant. It's found naturally in many different fruits and vegetables, for example, onions and garlic and apples and so forth. But it's a very useful substance. They've done a number of different published studies on it, so it's very much evidence-based. They found that it's very effective for seasonal allergies because it acts as a natural antihistamine, it acts as a natural anti-inflammatory, and without having the side effects of the common over-the-counter antihistamines. So again, this is one supplement. A second one I wanted to point out is called butterbur. Butterbur is one of those herbs or plants that has a strange or funny name, but is probably one of the most well-studied plants or herbs that can help with allergies. Because, again, it has anti-inflammatory properties, it's a natural antihistamine, but even beyond that, it is actually a leukotriene inhibitor. Some of you may have heard of the common medication known as Singulair, which is a leukotriene inhibitor, and the herb known as butterbur actually inhibits leukotrienes as well, or in addition to histamine. They've actually studied butterbur head-to-head with Zyrtec, and they found similar results, but again, without the side effects. So again, it's a very useful herb that you should look into and go to a qualified practitioner to know how to use. A third and final one that I wanted to point out is known as NAC. It stands for N-acetylcysteine. This is a very powerful antioxidant that's a precursor to something known as glutathione. That's very important for your liver. But to make a long story short, this very strong antioxidant is also what we call a mucolytic, meaning it thins the mucus out in your body, and especially in the sinus cavities. So it helps not only with inflammation, but it also helps to thin the mucus out to help your body to excrete it. So the way that I have most of my own patients use this is there are certain sinus rinses that are available commercially that include NAC in the sinus rinse along with salt and water. So again, do look for that as well. So overall, just to quickly recap, I've mentioned 4 different natural techniques for you that are going to be really useful for you. I mentioned restoring gut health, especially for the long term and helping with making you less prone to allergies. I mentioned the use of local bee pollen with local honey. I mentioned the technique known as NAET. I mentioned certain useful natural supplements. So I do hope everybody out there can make use of it. I hope your seasonal allergies can get much better with some of these techniques. And I do wish you all happy, holistic health. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين.